On the 16th of July 2024, Gareth Southgate announced that he would be stepping down as the England manager after 8 years in charge of the national team. So this comes after England's 2-1 loss to Spain in the final of Euro 2024, and really for this it was kind of surprising that England did get to the final. I don't think a lot of people really expected this to happen, especially after England's performance in the group stage and then England's first knockout game. However, England did get to the final and unfortunately they did lose to Spain. So Southgate said this after he stepped down: "As a proud Englishman, it has been the honour of my life to play for England and to manage England. It has meant everything to me. I have given it my all, but it's time for a change." So here obviously he thinks he's done what he can for the national team, and this is a lot considering what he took over from, because if you remember back to Euro 2016, England ended up losing to Iceland. I think it was either in the quarter-final or the round of 16. I'm pretty sure it was the round of 16. But yeah, England ended up losing to Iceland, and this was absolutely slammed by the media, because really, especially in an international tournament, England should not be losing to a team like Iceland. No disrespect to Iceland, but England have a much bigger pool of players to choose from, and they have really just the better team by a mile. So really, this was an uphill battle for Southgate when he took the England role, but then again you could also argue that he didn't really have the really high expectations because of what had just happened in the Euros. So overall, how did Gareth Southgate do? So as I said, he took charge in 2016 and has now stepped down in 2024, so 8 years in charge. His record stands at 102 games, 61 wins, 24 draws and 17 losses, with a win percentage of 59.8%. So really, when you look at it like that, he has a very, very good record for England, and you could arguably say, numbers wise, he has one of the best records for an England manager. And plus, he is only the third England manager ever to be in charge for more than 100 games, so quite an exclusive club considering that England have had quite a few managers over the years. And the other managers that have had this accomplishment are first Sir Alf Ramsey, who was the manager during the 1966 World Cup, so the England World Cup winner, and also Walter Winterbottom, who was a manager a long time ago. So those two managers, really the only other two, with Gareth Southgate to get 100 plus games in charge for England. So it kind of shows you the type of company that Southgate is in with his England record and obviously managing over 100 games. So overall, Gareth Southgate was in charge for 2 World Cups and 2 European Championships. So this first international tournament was the biggest one of them all, well, the World Cup in 2018, where England ended up finishing second in Group G with 6 points. So here, even though England had lost to Iceland, obviously they were expecting a bit of an improvement on that. But when England finished second in their group, most people probably weren't expecting what actually ended up happening, which was England made it to the semi-finals but ended up losing 2-1 in a very, very close game to Croatia. So a much bigger improvement on Euro 2016 to the 2018 World Cup. So the next tournament, Euro 2020, which if you remember was actually played in England as well, they ended up finishing top of the group with 7 points. So here you're probably getting a bit more optimistic about England's chances of making a deep run into the competition. So in the end, England actually ended up making it to the final. However, they lost 3-2 on penalties, surprisingly, to Italy, who had failed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup. So a bit of a surprise there. However, making it to a final was a massive jump for England, because they had not made a final in a very, very long time. So there was a lot of hype on that, plus with it being played at Wembley as well, on England's home turf, another big thing. So then the next competition, really, the 2022 World Cup, where once again England finished top of their group with 7 points. This is where a lot of people were really expecting England to make a big push to at least challenge for a World Cup at this point. However, they ended up making it to the quarterfinals, but ended up losing 2-1 in another very, very close game, this time to France, who, if you remember, won the 2018 World Cup. So England ended up going out to the then holders of the World Cup, which you can't really slag England off for, because if you go out to the current holders, then that's not really a surprise because they're the current holders. They're probably at least one of the favourites at that point. Plus, France ended up making it to the final, which they would end up losing, but you lost to the current holders and one of the teams that was in the final, so you can't really slate England for that. And another very good performance, making a decent run in the competition as well. So then going on to Euro 2024, surprisingly to a lot of people, England were put as the favourites, even though it wasn't in England, it was in Germany, and France had made the last 2 World Cup finals. And I know England had played well, but I think putting them as favourites was a bit of a step too far. However, England did manage to finish top of their group, this time with 5 points, and the performances this time were nowhere near as good as they had been previously. A lot of people were quite worried that England would have an early exit in this tournament. However, they managed to stumble their way to the final, and like I said earlier in the video, they ended up losing 2-1 to Spain. So even though England hadn't really played that well, they still managed to actually get to a final, which was quite surprising and really a bit worrying going into the final, because a lot of people thought that this final could have been an embarrassing loss for England. But then again, they really sort of went toe-to-toe with Spain, but they were in the game for practically the whole of it. So overall, I do think it was time for Gareth Southgate to go, and there are a few reasons for this. However, I think it is important to mention that he did a lot of good for England, especially when you look at where they were coming from after Euro 2016 and where they are now after Euro 2024. They are really, I want to say, one of the top teams in international football, because they have made multiple finals and they have made deep runs in the World Cup, which then again is a very, very difficult thing to do at the international stage, because it's not like club football where you can just buy all the best players in a certain league or something, which multiple teams have done. So you have a particular pool of players to pick from, and there are other very good teams around the world, like Argentina, like Brazil, like France, like Spain, like Germany. You get what I mean by that. So it is very, very competitive at the top internationally. So for Southgate to take England as far as he has, I do think it's done a lot of good. However, I do think he has taken them as far as he can. And the main reason I say this is because for me and for quite a few people, England do actually play too defensively. And considering the fact that we've got so many very, very good attacking players, for us to basically score a goal and then sit back and defend as much as we do, I do think it is really counterproductive, because our defence, even though I'll admit it's a good defence, it's not the type of one you want to sit back and defend with, because you're inviting other teams to attack, and usually with England that invites a goal. And as you've probably seen in the losses we've had, especially the big losses in international tournaments, that really I do think has been our downfall, especially because when we've got the attacking players we have, when you score a goal, you should just keep going forward, because obviously as long as you're attacking, the other team isn't going down, putting pressure on your defence. But if you're sitting back and kind of pushing players back, first of all, your attacks aren't going to be as effective. Secondly, you aren't going to be going forward for very long, so then the ball's going to be coming back your way consistently because you've got more players behind the ball. For certain teams, I do think that this would work very well, but for an England team that is very attacking based and has a lot of attacking players, I do think that sitting back can really only take England a certain kind of way. And I think it can only take us a certain way through a tournament. And unfortunately, the biggest hurdle for England just seems to be that last one when they get to a final. Because when you get to a final of an international tournament, you're going to be playing a very, very good team like a France, like a Spain, like a Germany. And these types of teams, if you invite pressure from them, they're going to score goals because they can go forward very, very well. And I do think that that has kind of been England's undoing, even though Southgate has done a brilliant job bringing English football kind of back where I think it should be. I do think that his kind of tactics work against him the further he goes through into a tournament. So overall, I do think it's really the best time for him to stand down as England manager. He's made back-to-back Euros finals. Not a lot of teams have done that, to be fair. So that is a big accomplishment. And I do think that now, if he went on to the next World Cup, the expectations would be really for England to push for a place in the final, which I do think under the way he plays with this England team, I don't think that would happen. So he's really gone out on a high, not as much of a high as he would have wanted to, but high nonetheless. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Gareth Southgate and him stepping down as England manager. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments. Do you think it was right for him to walk away from the job at this point, or do you think he should have stayed on a bit longer? Also, if you like the video, leave a like, and if you like this video, consider subscribing to the channel. So yeah, thank you for listening to the video, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.